from Princeton Connect. I'm Rose.
And I'm Monica. Today we have our friend Tara with us. Can you do a little introduction?
Yeah, I'm Tara. I'm a rising junior at Montgomery High School, and I'm from Iran.
How often do you go back to Iran?
So I try to go at least once a year for like a month or so to see my grandparents and my relatives that live there.
So most of your families live there?
It's pretty much half and half. A lot of my family had to immigrate because of a lack of opportunities in Iran, but I still have quite a bit of like immediate family that lives there.
Okay.
Cool. When you go back, are you used to the culture there? Do you feel like you already know the vibe, how they do things?
Yeah, so a lot of the time when I go there, even though I'm fluent in the language and I understand a lot of the traditional cultural aspects, I haven't spent a lot of time with kids my age that are Persian, that are from Iran, because most of my relatives are older than me. So even though I understand everything, some lingo or like new language that they have or trends that they have, I might not be able to pick up on as quick. So like an example I can give you is that if I ever go like watch a movie in Iran or I go to like a comedy show, like I don't really understand what's funny about what they're saying, but I do get what they're saying.
But do you feel accepted when you go back?
Yeah, so for a lot of Persians, the fact that I'm from America is something that's really interesting and cool. And they'll always be like, oh, like say something in English, like whatever. And they like kind of make fun of my accent. So I feel accepted, but I definitely feel a little bit different.
Okay.
Got you.
So did you face any obstacles growing up as a Persian American in the United States?
So my parents did a pretty good job as raising me in a way that I was confident in both being an American and also having a Persian background. So in terms of internally, I didn't have much conflict, but I've heard that from a lot of people, I don't necessarily look like a specific place. And for a lot of people, when they first meet me, one of the first questions that they ask is like, oh, where are you from? And so obviously it's not rude, it's not discriminatory, but it does get kind of annoying after a while, like getting asked that over and over again.
So how do you identify yourself? Do you feel more American because you grew up here, or do you still feel like there's a part of like you still live in a Persian way sometimes?
So I think that I consider myself an American first and a Persian second, but I do my best to incorporate as much Persian culture as I can into my life, because it keeps me connected to my family, and I feel like there's a lot of enjoyment in embracing who you are and where you're from.
So then how does like the Persian background kind of play into your family? So how is your family different from like the typical American family?
So I think with a lot of cultures outside of the US, a big component of it is respect for older generations. So like a lot of foreign languages, there's two different ways of addressing people, one for formal ways and one for informal ways. So for example, when I speak to my parents, in Farsi, I don't refer to them directly. There's like another way to say things, or even the way like verbs are conjugated, like there's one way that's more respectful than another. So it really instilled in me the idea that you have to have respect for your elders. And in terms of other things, my parents celebrate a lot of Persian holidays like Persian New Year. And another big part of Persian culture is being welcoming into your home. So growing up, I always participated in a lot of Persian parties and gatherings, and that kind of togetherness and I guess sense of community was really established as part of my childhood. So I think that's the biggest thing I've taken away from it.
Nice. How would you compare the parenting style? Are there any difference in the way your parents educate you, or is it more American or Persian, do you think?
I think that my parents tried their best to take the good and the bad from both cultures. Um, Something big that my mom always told me that was really important to her from the very beginning was teaching me how to be very independent and confident with myself and not being reliant on other people. And I think that's something in parenting that can be seen maybe on the more American side, where they almost push their kids to be more independent outside of the household. But in terms of more Persian aspects, my parents have always told me that blood is thicker than water, so family is above everything. Keeping your family close, keeping connections with your family, communicating with them, talking with them on the phone. Another very Persian thing that my parents have taught me is being humble. It's a very big part of the culture. You're not supposed to be overly flashy or showy about anything in particular about yourself. So I think I've tried to adapt that as much as I possibly can. So I think really it was like a blend of the best of both worlds, really.
Love that.
Tell us like about some of the Persian holidays your family celebrate.
So the one of them that I remember is Shab Yalda, which is the longest night of the year. It's the winter eclipse. That's when it happens. It's based off of the winter eclipse. So like the actual date changes every year. And the night is basically all about celebrating like the fact that it's winter and stuff like that. So a big part of it is that everybody eats pomegranates. We read poetry from a book of poetry and basically get together, celebrate. And I think the purpose is to bring warmth in the winter months, kind of as a way to like lift spirits. Thank you. And then the other one is that we celebrate the spring eclipse with the Persian New Year, or Nowruz, which is a 13-day long celebration of the ending of winter and coming into the spring and summer, celebrating like the ongoing fruitfulness of life. So it's that one is a lot more positive. It's about positivity. Like a lot of other cultures, in the new year, you're supposed to clean out your house. You're supposed to leave the house so the bad spirits leave the house. So it's a lot of like new, fresh awakening kind of things.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
It kind of reminds me of like how Americans lived in like the 18th century. I feel like with like Puritan beliefs and all that.
And another big custom is that, I mean, I was learning about Chinese New Year the other day, and just like Chinese New Year, we have certain days in that New Year where you're supposed to clean out the entire house. You're supposed to buy new clothes, get new things to kind of like refresh yourself and get rid of like the bad of the winter.
Cool.
Well, do your families also celebrate American holidays?
Yeah, so ever since, I don't think my parents celebrated American holidays before I was born, but I think that they put an effort to after I was born to, I don't know if it was like they were trying to like make sure I had like the American experience, I guess. But we definitely celebrate Christmas. We put up a Christmas tree. We do the whole Santa coming and the cookies and like the presents under the tree and whatever. I guess American holidays, of course, celebrate Halloween. Can't really think of anything else, but we don't celebrate anything like Easter like that because I feel like that's more religious.
So do you ever feel like a barrier between like you and your parents due to like how like the different background you guys were like you grew up in compared to your parents?
So definitely. I think some components are a little bit more complex. It's not as easy for me to like describe. I think one of the things is that in Persian cultures, my parents were taught to preserve what they had as long as they could. So this is kind of a mundane example, but when my mom used to get clothes as a teenager, she would ask for like some clothes, and my parents would like buy her. Obviously, her grandparents parents would buy her obviously whatever she wanted, and she would just keep it in a closet until the time came that she wanted to wear it for like 3 months, and then she would wear it because it was new, so she had to like prize it. And both of my parents are very much like that. Like, they save things as much as they can in order to extend the amount of time that they use them. But ever since I was little, like, if I were to get something new, I would rip off the tags and put it on and wear it around the house. And I mean, we didn't really get into any arguments about it, obviously, but it was definitely like a surprise to my parents that that was the way I reacted with like getting new things. It never really occurred to me the concept of saving and preserving for later. So I think I learned a little bit from them, but I can't fight my natural instinct.
That's so interesting. Do you think that happens among Persian teenagers as well, like your age, or is it just for adults?
What do you mean, like preserving things?
Yeah, because it sounds to me because I can remember my grandparents doing that as well. So I don't know if that's a common thing.
I think as time goes on, this isn't really has to do anything with culture, but we've become more used to consumerism. It's like the idea of consumption. And I think it has some things to do with cultures, especially more Eastern cultures. There's a culture of preserving and elongating things for as long as possible and not being wasteful. But it's partially cultural thing, but it also might as well be a generational thing as well, now that I'm thinking about it.
Do you think you're ever going to move back to Iran?
I don't think I would like to move back to Iran just because the government that's currently in power doesn't align with my personal belief system. So I wouldn't feel like I could exist the way I would like to exist in a society that is like that. But that by no means doesn't mean I'm not going to be the most Persian I can be in America, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree with you.
Do you have like any funny story that happened to you, and it's like because that you're Persian in like the US?
I can think of one. There was a little boy I think I was in 3rd grade or something. There was a little boy on my bus on the way to school, and I always catched him like looking at me like this. And one day I was like, "What's up with you, dude? Like, why are you always staring at me?" And he was like, oh, where are you from? And at this point, like, I was like, what, like 7 or 8 years old? And I was so fed up with this question because everybody would ask me this. And I was so done with having to answer it. So I was like, I'm from New Jersey. Where are you from? And she was like, I'm from New Jersey too. And I'm like, okay, end of conversation. And like, I was so angry and mad at him, and he was like, no, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Montgomery, New Jersey, 15 Stillman, New Jersey, 08558. And I remember being so angry and upset that he even like dared to ask me that kind of question. And like now looking back on it, I mean, he was just like a little kid that was curious, and I should have definitely just like told him I should have been like, well, my ethnic background is this, and like continued on. But I remember like as an 8-year-old, I was like so done with answering these questions that I just
Well, they probably were amazed at your beauty. So that's interesting. Last question. Do you have any advice for anyone who might not be adapting to or feel like they're not used to the American culture? Do you have any advice for people like that, or immigrants who are moving in?
My best advice that I think is truly sharing is caring, and it sounds so cliche, but having open and honest conversations, sharing cultural customs, learning about where your friends are from, their backgrounds, learning. And even if you're like American, as people like to say it, where you've been here for multi-generations, talking to your friends like that about their family history in America and your family history and dishes you have and food you have is so important, not just in learning more about others and building confidence in yourself, but also creating this community that, I mean, I think we all grow from one another by learning where each of us are from. Like something that my friends like to do, my friends often invite me over for dinner at their houses and I get to eat their yummy, yummy food from all over the world. And even just doing that, like, teaches me so much about them and deepens our friendship so much. And on my part, it makes me more confident about where I'm from too, because I know that I have something to share as well.
Yeah.
So I think talking about it and sharing about it like the way you guys are doing is just amazing.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, we loved your answers. You answered them so well. I think that's a wrap.
Bye, guys. It's fun talking to you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.